This is Conversations
with Ronnie Keith
and Iris. All right, this is Conversations with
Ronnie Keith
and Iris. Thank you guys so much for your support. We really appreciate all the outreaches, all of the fan mails, all those things.
The
Iris and I
feedback.
will definitely get back to you guys on the fan mail when we have our episode. Once again, though, this week we have a very special guest, as we normally do, as we talk with extraordinary people from all walks of life. And this guest that we have today is no different. We want to introduce you guys today to author Teri.
Brown.
Yes, Teri, thank you so much for joining Conversations with Ronnie Keith and Iris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, and I want to thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, no, thank you. The pleasure's all ours. We really appreciate it. I know that when we were getting this scheduled, there was some back and forth and, things happening, but I appreciate your patience and everything for coming on with Iris and I today.
Oh, not a problem. I know life throws curveballs, and you just have to be able to roll with those punches.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Teri, we wanted to talk with you as I was going to say, well, you're the author of 3 novels, but as of Valentine's Day, you're author of 4 novels. Is that correct?
Well, 3 novels, and then this 4th one isn't really a novel, because when people hear the word novel, they assume fiction. And
Mhm.
this one is a nonfiction. It's kind of more in the memoir / inspirational genres. Yeah. But yes,
Okay.
it's my fourth published book.
That is amazing. That is totally amazing. If you guys, we're going to, of course, plug Teri here with her website, so you can go and check out her books, and you could pick up her books. But she has the 3 novels: Daughters of Green Mountaintop Gap, An Enemy Like Me.
And some sunflowers beneath the snow.
Absolutely. And today, as we talk to her, we're going to dive into her memoir, as she just
Yes.
told
How
us.
did you get started?
10 Little Rules for a Double Butted Adventure, which is an inspirational book about her ride across the United States. And this ride consists of 3,102
Ooh,
miles
during
during the summer
You
of
got to tell me
2020.
about all those miles, girl.
Yeah, right. And then, like you said, during the summer of 2020.
The
So it
COVID
wasn't
summer.
even just 3,102 miles, but let's throw COVID in there just to make things a little more
Yeah.
interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The COVID. But this journey helped you heal. It helped
Yes.
heal all of the emotional things that you've gone through throughout your life. And this was well needed. So let's start from the beginning, Teri. How did you get so involved with publishing novels and books and memoirs? What sparked your interest in doing that?
So, yeah, as a little girl, I said that I wanted to be an author, but I also said that I wanted to be an Olympic ice skater and a brain surgeon. So I don't really think that I knew that's what I wanted, but what I knew I loved was books. But
Wow.
then, life happens, and
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
went off to college, and there was no way my parents were going to pay for a college degree for me to be a writer, because that's not considered in my parents' opinion, it wasn't a real job, right? And
Right.
so then I got married, and I had 4 children, and I ended up divorced, and then I remarried. And in that remarriage, it was an emotionally abusive relationship that I was in for 14 years. And
Mhm.
I stayed in
Wow.
that relationship for a long time, I think partially because I didn't want to be divorced twice. It was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, you've already done this once and you don't want to do it again.
Right.
I finally got out of that relationship in 2017. But while in that relationship, I wanted to be an author. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I had been writing for small businesses, writing website content, ebooks, those kinds of things. But I knew
Wow.
I wanted to write, but I was terrified. And I didn't have a good support system at home. When you're going to put yourself out there with something like, a novel, you need a safe space at home so that if it crashes and burns, there's someone there who's going to love you through it. And I didn't have that. I got out of that relationship in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and words started pouring out of me, but I was still an emotional wreck, and
Mm-hmm.
there was
Oh, I
no
can only
way I was.
imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get out of a relationship like that and then you're just fine. Like it,
Right.
Oh,
it
of
takes a
course
lot of
not.
work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was writing, but I wasn't showing it to anyone. Now
Mm.
I meet Bruce, who becomes my third and final husband. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he just supported me so much and thought that my writing was amazing, but he wanted to go ride across the United States on a bicycle. It was something he's wanted to do since 1976.
Whoa.
A group of college students did it for the bicentennial, and he was like, "Oh, that's what I want to do." Well, I had been saying for several months before I met him that I wanted to do something big and bold, something adventurous, something that would prove that I still had value and worth and that I was capable. Turns out no one else needed to know that but me. Everyone else believed it. I didn't. But,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I needed to prove myself. And when he mentioned that, I thought, well, that would be a big, bold adventure. Well, crazily, I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years.
Oh,
Oh
So
oh my
boy.
God. So tell us, you got back on the bicycle,
we
you
did.
started this journey. So how was that getting back on a bike?
It I thought it was great. We got on a tandem bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's athletic. He's done triathlons and all of the things. And he would have been so far ahead of me. And he said, "Hey, let's do this on a tandem." Well, I got on the back of the tandem for the first time. I thought I did a great job. He told me later that it was horrible, that he could hardly keep the bicycle upright. And it was because I was squirming and, all the things
Uh-huh.
because I hadn't been on a bicycle in forever. But we started just doing little rides all around our home. And we ended up riding about 1,000 miles over the next year and a half to get ready for this big trip.
Now, Terry, when riding on a tandem bike, you have to move in the same motion. Is
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, you do. Now your
Oh,
pedals are connected so that when his move, mine move, but it doesn't mean that I can just sit back there and not pedal. I mean, he would
Hmm.
definitely know if I was not pedaling, right? And
Right.
so, but yeah, you have to coordinate your efforts. You can't go faster than the person in front of you wants to move. You can't go slower. Like you have to learn to ride in sync with someone. And then
Wow.
even things like how you get started. You don't just two people hop on a bicycle and go. One person has to get on, steady the bike. The other person gets on, gets themselves prepared. You lift one of the pedals. They get their one foot in. You count to three. You get
so you
started.
really have to depend on that person to get you back into like a sequence, right? And I bet your
Absolutely.
legs were burning.
Oh, yeah, and not only that, but sitting on a bicycle seat is not comfortable. Um, and I think in particular for women, it just is not a comfortable seat. And I had to look, well, I think 7 or 8 different seats before I found one that I thought, okay, I can make this one work for me.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was definitely an adventure. The adventure started long before we started in Oregon. So
So, where was your starting point, right?
right.
So, you said Oregon. Was that the starting point, and where
Yes.
was the destination?
So we started in Astoria, Oregon, which is on the coast. And
Hmm.
then our destination was Washington, D.C. at the Marine Corps Memorial. My husband is a 25-year veteran, 12 and a half years in the Marines, 12 and a half years in the Army Corps of Engineers. And as part of the trip, we decided that we would raise money for Toys for Tots. And since
Oh,
that
Oh,
is a
that's
Marine,
wonderful.
yeah, and
yeah.
since that's a Marine Corps, um, you know, nonprofit, that's who runs it. We
Hmm.
thought that stopping at that Marine Corps Memorial would be like the perfect place to stop. And so that's what we did. And we rode 3,102 miles. And I tell everyone I know exactly where those 2 miles were. So I never leave those out.
What were the 2 miles?
The last 2 miles over the Rocky Mountains.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoa.
Oh, that
As I
was
want you to
rough.
imagine trying to cross the Rocky Mountains on a tandem bicycle. Now, for those
Hmm.
of you who don't know, that's a two-seated bicycle. So,
Hmm.
you've got two tires, two seats, two people sitting on it. It was fully loaded, which means we had packs that were hanging on the wheel frame, both front and rear. We were both wearing backpacks, and we
Mm.
were pulling a trailer with all of our camping gear.
My
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine us
goodness.
doing that?
Well, she,
What? I
well, she
mean,
said that they started off doing 1,000 miles, right?
but
I think
imagine
by the we get all the way down the corner over there where the Wawa is, I think we'll be done.
we would have been
We
done.
would have been calling somebody to come pick us up.
Terry, we would have been out of breath and then we would have gotten into it with each other. It's like, how dare you? You were supposed to keep up with my speed. Oh my God. I applaud you 110% to do this with your husband because that takes a lot of courage.
Well, and a lot of people call a tandem bicycle a divorce machine, because if you
Oh,
can't
look at that.
figure out how to work together, if you can't figure that out, then it's going to be unpleasant. You're not going to have fun. My husband would talk about a couple that he knew when he was still living in the DC area, and they would come up behind this couple and hear them arguing. And as soon as they would get up close, the arguing would stop. And then as soon as they would pull off again, they'd hear the arguing again. And that the couple did not last as a tandem cyclists for more than about 2 months, and they were just done. It went in the basement and they never got it out again because they couldn't figure out how to coordinate, how to get along,
Oh,
how to
goodness.
not argue, because arguing on a tandem isn't any fun.
Right, right. So doing a tandem bike, that consists of a lot of trust, right?
Yes.
Someone taking the lead,
Listening.
all those things, right? So how long was this? Did this adventure take place after your last marriage?
Okay, so I left my last marriage in 2017 in April, and in June of 2020, so 3 years later.
Okay. So let me ask you, Terry, before we get into really the specifics of the, where you went on the trip and then also about your book, were you in a place emotionally of trusting someone?
So I think the answer is yes and no. I trusted Bruce. I married him.
Mhm.
That says something because I was never, ever, ever getting married again. I was done. I wasn't going to get married. Bruce tells everyone that he chased me until I caught him.
Oh, I
And
love that.
so essentially he stuck around until I finally just said, okay, I guess this is what I'm going to be doing. And he was a person that no matter what he said, he followed through. He
Mhm.
always kept his word. And he told me early on in our dating, he said, what you see is what you get. This is who I am. I'm not
Mhm.
more and I'm not less.
I
This
love
is
that.
me. And I didn't believe it for the longest time. Like I kept
Mhm.
waiting to see him do or say or be something else. And he just never was. So I trusted Bruce pretty much. I would have never married him had I not trusted him. But I think there was still a big part of me that was waiting for that other shoe to drop, just waiting
Right.
for something to happen again.
Mhm.
And the trip across the United States fixed that. I recognized what I had and that he
Wonderful.
was exactly who he said he was. And then I began to trust other people as well.
Mm.
So Terry, and just, and I love that you said that. And it seems like this was I call these what is it? Eat, pray, love moments.
Yeah.
That made you realize, wow, I do trust this person. And you did trust Bruce by then, but going through all these cracks, going through all this journey and going through all these miles, overall, what was the biggest takeaway from it? And then what made you realize, oh my God, this is the inspiration for my book? When was that turning point?
I think the turning point kind of happened little bit at a time the whole way across the United States. Bruce will tell anyone that the woman who started the trip with him was not the woman who ended the trip.
Oh, that's
Mm.
I
beautiful.
I became more sure of myself. I recognized that those stories that I had been told about myself, not being good enough, not being capable, not being
Mhm.
able to make decisions, being too anxious, being too whatever I was too much of,
Mhm.
that none of that was true. That I was exactly what I needed to be and that what I was enough. But the final like aha, came in the last half mile of the trip. We're coming up a hill. By the way, we always ended up. It never failed. Wherever we were stopping for the day, there was always a half mile going up. I don't know what that is, but it's like always up. But we
Right.
were going this last half mile. It was up this hill, and my husband said, "Do you see that flag?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "That's it. That's where we're stopping." Well, I started to laugh and then cry and then laugh and then cry. I was a big emotional mess, and I thought, I just made it across the United States. Me.
Wow.
Like, I did it. I can do anything I put my mind to. It is
Yeah.
not a matter of can I do something? It's a matter of what do I want? And I thought, I want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first book was published.
Oh,
Wow.
that's good to know.
Wow.
And after that, like, what was the preparation like? Like, what did you have to undergo to get that first book written?
So I actually had the book, the first draft written, but I had never shown it to anyone. I didn't believe it was any good. And I I started what they call querying, which is where you send the manuscript off to people, and long before it was ready. I should have never done it, but I found an editor who looked at it and could see that with a little bit of work that this could be a book. And they started working with me, and the next thing you know, I've done some rewrites and made some changes and added and whatnot, fleshed this book out. And yeah, then I was able to get it published. So it was really crazy the way it worked out for me. And I think part of it is I opened up myself to the possibility that I could do it. And because I was no longer afraid, I was able to find those people that could then help me make that true.
Wow. That is wonderful. That's very inspirational.
It really is, especially for people out there, Terry, that want to write the first book.
Yeah.
You know, I inspire, to write my first book one day, and that's inspiring to hear somebody that's listening in the audience right now as well. I know that's going to help them out a lot, and let's breaking that apart a little bit. Let's like unpack it a little bit. What do you suggest for someone that went on this, 3,102 miles and discovered that, this is it. I want to be an author. But what would you suggest for someone out there, our listeners, that want to step into that writing spectrum and become an author and write their first book?
So the first thing that I tell people is don't wait. Get started. You can't become an author until you start writing. It would be like thinking that you can become a painter without painting.
Mm,
Right?
It's
And
beautiful. Yeah.
and that first painting that you do, it's going to be horrible because you don't know how to hold the brush, and you don't know how much paint to put on, and you don't know what you're doing yet. But you're getting started. And that's the same thing with being an author. You've got to start writing because you can't get better at it until you've put the first words down on paper. You can't edit a blank page. It just can't be
right.
done. And so I tell everyone, don't wait. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for a class. Don't wait for some degree. Don't wait. Go ahead and start writing now. Once you've written enough that you believe I have something maybe that has, yeah, it's like it's okay. I feel okay with it. Find a critique partner. And I don't mean find someone who's going to say, oh, this is so wonderful. Find an actual critique partner who's willing to tell you what works and what does not. And then listen to them and take what you hear and then write again and write more. Maybe write the same piece again, maybe write something different with whatever they said in mind,
Hmm.
and keep doing that until you now have learned your craft. The final thing I tell people is you don't have to listen to everyone. I had a manuscript. I sent it out to what they call beta readers, which are early readers. And I had 6 beta readers that came back with 6 different suggestions,
Oh
none of which
man.
could all be done at the same time because they contradicted one another. So
Hmm.
you can't follow everyone's advice, but what you can do is check out their advice against how you feel about your writing. If you
Mm.
get someone who says the same thing, like 3 different people are saying the same thing, good chance that they know what they're talking about. and that you need to maybe try to make changes there. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess my biggest advice is don't wait. You can't become an author without writing, and you can't get better at writing without writing. So go ahead and just start, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, that is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things to give people if they're inspiring. As my wife just
Encouragement.
said, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Now, I don't want to give your whole book away, of
Yeah, no,
course,
that's
because I want people to go and purchase the book. But you do have 10 rules
right.
for writing the double budget adventure. Can you give us, you don't have to give us all 10,
Yeah,
but can you give us a few of the rules
yeah.
that you have for
I
writing on a
definitely
double budget
can. And
adventure?
so I want people to understand that these aren't 10 rules for riding a tandem bicycle across the United States. These are 10 rules that I learned about life while riding a tandem
Hmm.
bicycle. And so I believe that these are rules that will help you lead a more adventurous life, whatever that adventure looks like to you. It can be something like riding a tandem bicycle, but it could also be something as easy or as mundane, small, would as like moving to a new location, changing jobs because you are dissatisfied with the one that you're in, starting a new relationship, figuring out what you're going to do as a new empty nester, um, deciding that you want to start watercoloring, like whatever that is. I say anything that's outside of your norm, that's kind of outside of your box. And that's what these rules help people to do. And then real fast, the other thing that I tell everyone is I am not an expert. These are my 10 rules. And at the
Hmm.
end of every chapter, I give um, guided journaling questions that will help people discover their own rules, because maybe my rules don't work well for you, and that's fine. This is a starting place, a jump off. I don't think that I'm the end all and I know the 10 things, and if you do these 10 things, bam, you've got your life. That isn't it at all. But what I do say is these are 10 things that I discovered, and they
Mhm.
help me, and I would love to share them with you, and I hope that a few of them resonate with you and can help you develop your own rules for living an adventurous life. um, with that said, I have two are really dear to me. One of them,
Mhm.
my rule number 9, is never quit on a bad day.
Mhm.
We we had a bad day, so we had a 70-mile day, which on a tandem bicycle is a very long day. But we had no options. We were in eastern Montana. There was nothing between where we had spent the night before and where we were going.
Mhm.
So we had to make the 70 miles. It was very hot. It was very hilly. The wind was blowing in the wrong direction. So it was blowing
Oh
at
boy.
us so that we were,
Oof.
headwind all day long.
Right.
We went through a valley of mosquitoes in which these mosquitoes were the size
Oh.
of small birds. I swear to you, I've
Oh.
Oh,
never
oh my
seen mosquitoes
gosh.
so big. And then, just to
Oof.
make it even more fun, we had not one, not two, but three flat tires.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I bet that was
So
so tough.
we pull up at the end of this day, and I was done. And I don't mean
Mhm.
done for the day. I mean, I was done. I was
Yeah.
never getting back on the bicycle. I was totally done. And I kept a blog, and I wrote on the blog that day, I think we're done. I'm just I'm not having fun. This is miserable, and I'm done. And I had a friend reach out almost immediately, sent me a text, and she said, "Hey, what you've done so far is amazing. You've made it over the Rocky Mountains. You're out there living life when everybody else is cooped up at home,
Right.
during COVID.
Right.
And if you stopped today, you wouldn't have to hang your head because you've done an amazing job. However, I'm going to recommend that you don't quit on a bad day, because
Mm.
if you do, you'll always wonder if you could have made it. So why don't you see if you can take a break or make an easy day tomorrow, give yourself a chance to be a little more successful at things, and then when you're feeling rested, make a decision. And if you decide to quit, if you decide this is it, hey, you've done an amazing thing and you have nothing to hang your head over. Well, the next day we had a beautiful day and it was amazing, and I didn't feel like quitting anymore. And I keep this rule in the back of my head all the time. Don't quit on a bad day. Don't quit at the end of the day when you're tired and hungry and everything is wrong. My shoes don't fit right and I don't like the color of my socks and all of the things, right?
Right.
And instead wait until you can be a little more logical, where you could actually make a list of pros and cons and then make a decision based on real information instead of just emotion. And so I love the never quit on a bad day. That is something that really just resonated with me. The
Mhm.
other rule that I love is rule number 3, do hard things. And I'm going to tell you a story. I didn't let you know ahead of time, and so I'm going to
Mhm.
shock you right now, and just be
Okay.
prepared.
Okay.
Um, in June of 2022, my husband was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is an
Oh.
incurable brain
Oh,
cancer,
wow.
and he
Oh.
passed away in January, just this past January.
Oh
Oh, Miss Terry, I am
man.
so sorry to hear that. So
Yeah,
sorry for
and
your loss.
yeah,
Oh,
and
Terry.
it's, definitely has been definitely a difficult journey these last couple of months. And this book was
Mm.
already scheduled to come out, but on the day that he passed away, I had been waiting for my author copy to come. So, and I had wanted him to see it so badly. And he was no longer at this point. It came about an hour before he died. And so he was no longer opening his eyes, but I knew he was listening and could hear me. And I crawled up in bed with him and I told him all about the book. And then I started to read it. And I read the introduction, and I read rule number 1, and I read rule number 2. And then I said, rule number 3, do hard things. And he died.
Mm.
Oh.
And I felt like maybe I had given him permission to do something that was very difficult for him to do, which was to be done fighting. As a veteran, he gave it everything he had. But the other thing is it was his last words to me, because from January 10th until present, every day has been hard, but I can do hard things. And so
Right.
there are days where I'm laying in bed and I think, oh, I can't do today.
Right.
I just can't do today. And then I hear, do hard things. And I
Mm.
think, yes, I can. And I throw my legs over the side of the bed and I get up and I do the day. So for me right now, my rule number 3, do hard things, is my mantra. It's the thing that pushes me forward every day, because I can do hard things.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, that's very encouraging. And again, I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I am very sorry for your loss. But I think this is good for someone or a wife or a recently widowed that could definitely relate to that,
Yeah.
to keep going, and see the positive in things. What other suggestions or advice do you have for somebody that recently was widowed or, that wakes up every day? It's like, I just can't do it today. What other suggestions do you have, Miss Terry?
I think for me, it's sometimes it's just a matter of put one foot in front of the other and do as much as you can do. And then it's sometimes okay to say, and now I'm done for today. Like,
Mhm.
do those things on your list that have to be done. And then give yourself permission. It's okay to have a down day. It's okay, and that's part of the grieving process. And it's perfectly fine to be really okay one day and really not okay the next. Like, that's normal. And then I think the other thing I would suggest is make sure you surround yourself with people that love you and care about you and are willing to. I tease everyone and tell them that they're putting up with me right now, because, sometimes all I want to do is just talk about Bruce. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
And they're willing to sit and listen and just be part of that with me. So surround yourself with people who are okay with your grief, who are okay with the fact that you're going to have a really good day where you laugh and everything seems fine. And then the next time they see you, it's not going to be a really good day, and there's more tears and there's more, reminiscing, and that they're okay with that they can just let you be who you are, and yeah, do life the way you need to do it at the moment.
Yeah, that's very inspirational. Thank you, Miss Terry, for sharing that story with us. We really appreciate that. I know that Bruce could not be more proud of you with
Yeah.
what you're accomplishing and doing and set forth. You
Yes, so
know,
this book was supposed to come out on February 14th, and
mhm,
when he passed on January 10th, I really did consider changing that date because it's
mhm,
like that's just 1 month. There's no
Yeah.
way. How am I going to talk about this book? How
yeah,
can I possibly do that? And 2 weeks after he passed, I had a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it. And if it
mhm,
doesn't work, luckily it's recorded and we can just say this isn't working and we'll have to reschedule. And I got done with that podcast and I actually felt better for having
Oh, that's
had good
good.
memories,
yeah,
like being
yeah,
able to talk about the wonderful trip, the wonderful changes that occurred because of someone who believed in me the way he believed in me. Um, it's given me a way to remember him not sick at the end.
right, right,
The end of a cancer journey is never pretty. It just
right,
isn't pretty.
right.
And it's not the part that you want to remember.
That's right.
And so to have this book to be able to talk about these adventures and all the fun and the laughter and the even the times that we had arguments, etc., all of that is so much better for me to have that as the thing I'm remembering. And I feel like I get to honor him every day that I talk about this book.
Absolutely, you absolutely do. Let me ask you, Terry, the journey going across, how many states did you go through, and how long did this journey take for the 3,102 miles for you and your husband?
Yes, so the journey was 72 riding days, but we were gone for 90 days because we had to take some breaks. You can't just ride it straight across. There are days that you have to stop. And then as far as, I don't even remember the number of states. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 maybe?
Wow.
12? I would have to go and actually count, but in the neighborhood of a dozen. Yeah.
Okay. Was there a state that stood out outside of Montana with the uh end of world mosquitoes?
Yes, so Montana is huge, and I
Mhm.
felt like we were in Montana a very long time.
Okay.
Um, but there was a day that was a couple of days that were amazing as we were in Idaho. Right before we went over the Rockies, we were going through an area called Lolo Pass, and
Mhm.
it oh, I've never seen such beauty. And he was such a good sport because we would go around a corner and I would go, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And he would
Mhm.
pull over and let me take a picture.
Oh,
And
that's
then we would
Oh.
go, oh, I don't know, 100 yards and turn another corner. And I would say, oh, that's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And he would stop and let me take a picture. And he would also, I would say things like that. And I would suck in my breath and he'd go, I know, wildflowers. And he'd pull over and let me take a picture of the wildflowers.
oh my goodness.
So I would say the Lolo Pass area was absolutely beautiful. We had, I believe it was in Montana, but I would have to go back and look. But we had a day that was just a difficult. It was toward the end of the day, and I was getting tired and ready to be done. And we were going up, which seems to always be the thing.
Right.
And I wasn't looking around anymore. I was just looking down at my legs and kind of counting 1, 2, 3, 4 as I'm moving my feet. And all of a sudden, Bruce says, Terry, look at that. And I looked over to my right, and there were horses, and they were running with us.
Oh my
And they were
God.
Oh.
running up,
That's a
their
sign.
pastured, right. And we're riding with them, and they get to the end of their fenced in area, and the stallion at the front shook his mane and kind of like tapped his paw into the dirt, and we went up and over, and I thought, oh my goodness, we couldn't have paid for that experience. You could have never gotten the horses to just run with you, and yet we had the horses run with us. So we
Wow.
had a lot of
Oh,
really
that's
cool
beautiful.
experiences. Yeah.
And that's good to know. I guess the horses were inspired too. It's like,
Yes.
let me just join them and let's
Yeah.
run with them.
I mean, I think they probably looked over and thought, that's the weirdest horse we've ever seen. Let's run with it.
I like this. Let me just run with them. And Teri, and talking about your other novels, like, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow and then The Enemy Like Me, these novels delve into, historical fiction. I love some historical fiction. And I was just curious to know, like, what drew you to that specific genre, and how do you approach, blending factual history to personal stories? I mean, we see that all the time. Like, you have Diana with Outlander, who just created this Outlander story, which is awesome. But that's what comes up to me in my head. I don't know why. But talk to us about that, into that historical content.
I absolutely love research and I love writing. And so historical fiction is like a beautiful fit because you have to do enough research to make your setting real and to make your characters do the right kinds of things in whatever time period they're in. And then I love creating characters. And so the idea of being able to like marry those two things, that I can do this great research and find all these really cool facts and then give those facts to my character to do something with, has just been really fun. Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, they call it historical fiction, and it bothers me just a little because it starts in 1970, which means that I'm historical, and I just have trouble with that, but that's okay.
That's not that old now.
Hey,
No,
Teri.
I know, but they call it historical. But anyways,
Oh my God,
Teri,
I can't
don't
believe
feel
that.
bad at all. Let me tell you something real quick before you
Yeah.
continue. Last night we were getting our little vacation together, and on this sheet to fill out for us to take our vacation, it had to put our date of birth on there, right? So as I go to just, okay, I can click over. No, because we're so far back, the calendar, we had to go back for the different decades because we were so
Oh
far
my
back. We
God,
couldn't go
stop
year for
it.
year. Once we got to the year 2000, it was like, nope, you got to skip to decades. So then it started from 1950 to 1980. And I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
this is how you guys are doing this.
Yeah,
But
it's like,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
just
Wow,
see
make
how
us
old you
old.
can make us.
Right. I'm
Right.
sorry, but continue. I'm
Oh
sorry.
my goodness.
So, but the Sunflowers Beneath the Snow is about 3 generations of Ukrainian women. It starts when Ukraine is still held under Soviet rule, goes through their ability to be independent, and then goes through when when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. The really crazy thing is this book came out 4 weeks before the current Ukrainian crisis.
Oh,
So people
wow.
say to me all the time, "How did you know?" And it's like, no, I did not. I didn't have any insight.
You got a crystal ball over there.
Yes,
Like,
fortune teller sees the future.
none of that. But I have a friend who's Ukrainian, and she told me this incredible story. And I tell everyone that I wrote 82,000 words of fiction so I could tell 3 pages of truth. And so the last chapter, not the epilogue at the end, but the last chapter, those last 3 pages actually happened to her. And then I just made everything else up as to how we could have come up to that place. And my next one is An Enemy Like Me, and it's loosely based on family history. My grandfather fought in World War II, and he fought in Germany. And he once said to me when I was a teenager, he said, I always wondered if the person on the other side of my gun was a cousin because we're of German heritage.
Right.
And I thought, oh my gosh, like that, like gives me like shivers. And I thought,
Wow.
how much cooler would it be to have a book that would have a first generation German American who thinks they're going to fight in World War II, that they're going to fight the Japanese, and instead end up in Germany and realize he's more like the enemy than he is different from the enemy. So that's what
Wow.
that book explores. And then Daughters of Green Mountain Gap is set in the North Carolina mountains in the 1890s. And we have a granny woman, which is a healer, someone who uses roots and herbs and what I say is a little bit of mountain magic to do their healing. She has a daughter who becomes an actual nurse going to nursing school and tries to bring
Wow.
modern medicine back to the community. And it sets up, a problem between mother and daughter. And then there's a granddaughter, and she doesn't know which way to turn. She sees the value in both what her mother and her grandmother do. And she also recognizes that neither one of them have the full truth because people still die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That is
Wow.
amazing. Terry, you are a amazing woman. I
Well, thank
have to
you.
She
say.
really
I
is.
mean, and not to, I don't want to downplay it. And of course, this could be a conversation for another day, but Terry has also published books about dealing with real estate,
Yeah.
self-help books.
Yeah.
So she
We
is a
all can
woman that
relate to
has,
that.
yeah, she has a wide variety of inspirational help guides
Hmm.
through any different genre that she has written and done. And
It's truly beautiful work. It really
yes,
is. I feel like you're speaking to me as a friend, but I know to our listeners, they could relate so much, Miss Terry, to you, to
absolutely.
your experiences and what you've done. You have a beautiful story. I'm so glad that you have work out there, bibliography work out there that you could just publish and write these beautiful novels. It's just very, very enlightening.
Yes.
You
Thank you
are
so
amazing.
much. Oh, well, I'm going to call you up every morning and you can tell me that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Oh, Miss Terry, it has been an absolute pleasure. Your journey from your storytelling, the inventor to the mentorship, everything. And it's truly inspiring. And I just want to thank you so much that, for sharing your experiences and most importantly, that wisdom and passion just to share with our audience today. This has been phenomenal. Anything else you want to add, my darling?
I think the only thing I want people to understand is that everything you need is already inside of you. It might be that it's been buried by, crap that the world's thrown at you. And it might be that you don't know how to access it, but you are enough. You've already got what you need. And it's just a matter of tapping into it. And once you figure out how to tap into it, you really can do whatever it is that you set your mind to.
absolutely wonderful message. Thank you, Terry. People listening, please check out Terry, check out her novels, check out her memoir. You can find everything you want from Terry at her website, which is www.terrymmbrown.com. You can also sign up for her newsletter where you receive a list of 10 historical fiction you've never heard of that will bring you to tears, which I don't think I would be able to mentally handle that, right? Emotionally handle that right now. I'm
Oh,
barely
yeah.
making it now at the end of this
Yeah,
episode,
you made me very emotional. I just have to say, I'm recording here, and I'm just like I have tears in my eyes. And
Yeah.
thank God, Ronnie took over and started talking because I would have like just bawled. But I just really want our listeners to to follow you, your books, and of course follow your latest products. I'm so excited for what's coming and what's in store for you, Terry.
Thank you so much for having me today. I've loved chatting with both of you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for listening to Conversations
With Ronnie Keith.
and Iris.